I do not know if I have shown this, but I have definitely mentioned it, and I can't stop thinking about this document behind me when we watch the Sarah Boone case. Now, if you listen to the prosecution before trial, they mentioned to the defense and to the judge that they were going to be able to show on Sarah Boone's phone that she was coaching George to drop charges against her. And back then, that led me to look up what charges those might be, and I ran across the one behind me: third-degree felony strangulation, which is interesting considering how George died. But on top of that, remember the day one of the Sarah Boone trial, when George's brother talked. Sarah Boone previously said that she had George call his brother, knowing it would upset George. She knew it would upset George, but she wanted him to call his brother anyway. And according to the brother, Sarah Boone claimed that he had strangled her before at some point. And that's just very interesting to me that this gets mentioned just before, well, the method that George died. So I thought, just in case I've never read this before on my channel, that I would share with you the arrest affidavit. On July 25th, 2018, at 1:52 hours, Zito responded to, I marked out their exact address, but I don't really need to, it's everywhere. Tealwood Park Apartments reference: a male kicked a female in the eye. I later determined this to be an aggravated battery by strangulation and battery case, both being dating violence. So the claim that they showed up for was a male kicking a female in the eye. And then Sarah ended up arrested as well. And you'll find out why soon. Upon my arrival, I spoke to Sarah Catherine Boone, Defendant 1, Victim 2. Sarah verbally stated she was at an unknown bar earlier in the evening when she asked an unknown male for a cigarette. Her boyfriend, George Torres Jr., Defendant 2, Victim 1, of 1.5 years, became upset since she was talking to another male and left the bar. They both went back to their residence located at blank and continued verbally arguing. Sarah was dragged upstairs by George, and she was kicked her in the right eye using his right heel. That's the wording used in the document. Sarah was unable to describe how she fell on the floor and or how she was dragged upstairs by George. That's interesting. Somehow, she doesn't know how she fell or how she made it upstairs at all. Sarah refused medical treatment. Sarah refused to write a statement and or sign any dating violence paperwork. After I spoke to Sarah, I spoke to George. George verbally stated that they were both at their residence verbally arguing and have been consuming alcohol. They have been dating for 1.5 years and residing together for 1.2 years. George attempted to go upstairs to avoid Sarah. While George was walking upstairs, Sarah reached towards George's throat using both of her hands. Sarah placed both of her hands around George's throat and applied pressure to the extent that George was having a difficult time breathing. George was sitting on the steps and started kicking towards Sarah in an attempt to get her off him. George believes he might have kicked Sarah in the face, but was not sure. George believed that if he did not kick Sarah off of him, she would have made him incapacitated due to being strangled. How does that feel to hear after what we've heard in this case so far? George refused medical treatment. George also refused to write a statement and or sign any dating violence paperwork. Both Sarah and George stated they have been dating for approximately 1 year and 6 months, residing together for approximately 1 year and 2 months. The left side of George's neck had red markings and small abrasions that is consistent with being strangled. Sarah's right eye is bruised and swollen, from receiving an impact. Both Sarah and George allowed Ramirez Delgado take pictures of their injuries. Ramirez Delgado later uploaded the pictures to DamnWorks. Both Sarah and George received a victim's right booklet with my name and case number, along with a photo injunction referral. Due to conflicting statements and injuries on both Sarah and George, I was unable to determine who the primary aggressor was. I placed both George and Sarah under lawful arrest and searched. And the rest is just explaining them getting charged. Interesting. Because let's say Sarah's version, where she just says that he hit her in the eye. Why does he have the marks on his neck? Is it almost like Sarah is not talking about what she did and purposefully leaving things out? And at the bottom, my body-worn camera was activated. Now, I'm going to be honest. I have been a little busy today when I recorded this. It's actually 2 a.m. on the 20th, by the way, when I record this. I'll schedule it later. So I haven't had time to look into it. But I have been told that possibly the 911 call of this is out there and it doesn't match the story. I'm not sure on that. I'm going to have to look into it. Just very interesting. It's very interesting that here it seems to be Sarah might have a little bit of a pattern. Pattern that's probably not something the jury's going to like. And remember, the defense, if I'm not mistaken, didn't they mention about Sarah talking to another man for a cigarette and it upsetting George? Am I misremembering that? Or were they talking about this? Because if I was the defense, I wouldn't touch this. I wouldn't want to touch this. Because if you touch this, we have someone where George Torres' story, at least from this document here, makes sense. And Sarah's doesn't. Sarah doesn't make sense. What do you do when you have to consider this as their history? And also, who called 911? Was it Sarah in this case? Because if Sarah called, was she just super upset that she's the one that ended up with a felony charge? George's wasn't a felony. The only one who got a felony charge from this was Sarah. But from my understanding, this got dropped. George didn't want to pursue it. Editing this in at the end of the video, let me know what you think about the situation behind me. And do you think that this is going to help or hurt her defense when the jury learns about this? Because it sounds like this exact arrest is going to be mentioned by the defense. But also, I decided to look it up, and I've got it for you. In the pinned comment, I will have for you the body cam footage of this night. You will get to see both the arrest of George and the arrest of Sarah. Both of them are arrested in it, and I am going to spoil it for you a little bit. Sarah is Sarah. She is going to act exactly as you expect Sarah Boone to do. Personally, my own opinion, I don't think the body cam helps her. But I want to know what you think. Let me know.